Welcome back, everybody, into Bills Chat Live. I am Josh McCarty. With me tonight, as always, is Luka. Luka, happy Wednesday. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, honestly. Sleep's been good, work life's been good. Holidays around the corner, which always just, naturally makes things and vibes feel good. And coming off of Bills terms, coming off of that Patriots win, looking forward to, fingers crossed, knock on wood, a easier, simpler week. Um,
Those
it's
have been the tricky ones.
yeah, right. No, things are doing, I think things are looking up, Josh. I think things are looking up and good right now.
Things are looking up for you. Things are looking up for the Bills. They were on the practice field today, albeit in a walkthrough. And, for the most part, everybody practiced. The notable names that didn't, Matt Prater, he's going to be out for a few weeks. The Bills did make a kicker change. They signed Michael Badgley, the money badger. Jordan Phillips is not going to play this week. He has an ankle injury, did not practice. And then I think the surprise one was Dalton Kincaid didn't practice with a knee. We'll see where that goes. Luka, we're going to talk about this Bills-Browns matchup. Ismail's is here. We always appreciate her being here. We're going to talk about this Bills-Browns matchup as we go along here. I do think, though, I want to start with the playoff picture because that's where my head's been at all week. And I know that's where your head's been at. We've talked about it. And I think when you kind of look around the conference, especially with some of the quarterback moves that have taken place in the division, with Tua being benched now for Quinn Ewers, a 7th-round rookie, and Tyrod Taylor out again this week for Brady Cook, also a day 3 rookie. And the Patriots need to, for the Bills to win the AFC East, lose a game to either the Jets or the Dolphins. It just gets harder and harder to really start to count on that. It's there for the possibilities. But where I want to start with you, Luka, is let's talk about the playoff options for the Bills. Let's see. What up, guys? Hey, quick question. You think Mitch can go in for the first play and get sacked by Myles so Josh doesn't become a highlight or be part of history? I love it, Nico. I think that's a brilliant strategy. I'm all for creative problem solving, and I think that's a great way to go. I would not predict that happens, though, but I would predict that Myles Garrett breaks the record this weekend, and unfortunately, I think it's going to come at the expense of Josh Allen, but hopefully it happens in a win. All right. Everybody's mind, I think, right now is on the playoff field. And with all due respect to the matchups the Bills could have as AFC East champions, I really want to focus right now, Luka, on the wild card matchup. So when you look at the potential opponents, and I think the playoff field in the AFC is set. The order of the teams is going to change, but the 7 teams, in my opinion, are locked in. You have Bills and Patriots. You have, well, I lie. There's one division up for grabs. Bills and Patriots. You have Texans and Jaguars. You have Broncos and Chargers. And then you have one spot for 2 teams, Steelers and Ravens. Here's where it gets interesting. In my opinion, the 5 seed is like the roll the dice, or the game of like door number 1 is like the ultimate prize and door number 2 is the dud. Because in my opinion, of all the options of where the Bills could go in the first round, the best case scenario is winding up in Pittsburgh with probably not TJ Watt. Mm-hmm. The worst case scenario, in my opinion, is winding up in Baltimore with a Ravens team that hasn't looked great this year, but it's still Lamar Jackson. It's still Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson's starting to look more like Lamar Jackson. So the 5 seed sounds great, but it really depends on who that opponent is. Otherwise, the Bills could still wind up, if they're a wild card team, at Houston or at Jacksonville. Both of those teams could win the South. The other one will be a wild card. And then from that point on, it's going to be either at Denver or at New England. Denver right now is a pretty heavy favorite to win the first seed. Of those 5 matchups, Ravens, Steelers, Patriots, Jaguars, Texans, which one, in your opinion, is the worst case scenario for the Bills?
Man, conventional wisdom tells me it's the Ravens. Your worst is Ravens. I will say in this, and I'll just keep on that a little bit, but I will say that is not my answer. Their defense is getting healthier. And they're getting back to their form when it comes to the defensive side of the ball a little bit. The offense still does have Lamar. It does have Derrick Henry. Patrick Ricard would be back for this go around if the Bills were playing, which they did not have him in that week one bout for what it's worth. And he is absolutely a key to that run game working and being effective. The reason I just think there's something going on that's deeper, that comes to a concern level with the Ravens. That is why I don't know if I necessarily fear them as much as I absolutely could. And on top of that all, I just think Houston is just an absolute nightmare matchup for the Bills. I just think, considering their defense and obviously how extremely dominant they are at all levels and facets, and then in my opinion, I just think that offense, where it might lack on some weapons and stuff like that, and the offensive line might not be great. The irony of that all is it feels like when the the offensive line opposition is not great, that's almost when the defensive line for the Bills gets even worse somehow, some way. And so that matchup that you should be able to exploit just doesn't become the thing that you are exploiting. And next thing you know, your offense, which really does need to drive this ship when it comes to the Bills. The offense has to be the thing that's controlling the game. The defense will not do anything for you. I think that's why it becomes, to me, the Texans just getting the slight nod as the scariest matchup, the one I least favor for the Bills at any point in time, especially if it's at their house. Like, optimally, if you are playing the Texans in the playoffs, it's because you're the 5 seed, the Texans were the 6 seed, and somehow you both upset your way into the AFC Championship. Upset, I'll quote, because I would imagine the Bills, at least in Pittsburgh and or even potentially in Baltimore, would be favorited. It's one of those ones where now you're hosting, at least in that crazy scenario, 5 hosting 6. But I that's kind of where I'm at, where I can absolutely understand the fear factor with the Ravens. Lamar is Lamar, Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry, and that defense is getting healthier. I just think, again, there's something about them this year. There's something about them that is not quite up to the absolute elite category. Clearly, I mean, they're 7-7 for what it's worth. That it kind of knocks them just enough where the matchup of the Texans being such a nightmare, to me, gives them the true nod as being the scariest for the Bills.
Roy Collins here tonight. Whatever happened to just get in and see what happens? We've come a long way. Yeah, I agree. I mean, we are definitely being greedy here, but hey, there's no shame in looking for the path of least resistance. Although we already know that path is not going to contain Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, and knock on wood, no Lamar Jackson. Although things need to happen in that regard. Right now, if I were to predict it, I would say the Ravens win that division, unfortunately. But here's the scary part, folks. I know we just got done with the Patriots this past week, but if you're like me and want to avoid the Ravens, you need to be a big Patriots fan this weekend. I know it feels weird. It feels counterintuitive because you look at the standings and the Bills are chasing the Patriots, and it feels like, why would I root for them to win? Trust me, this Ravens-Patriots game has so little to do with the AFC East, but everything to do with keeping the Ravens out. All right, so East Belize also chimes in with Texans are a scary matchup for sure. I wonder how much of that is because we've seen it. We saw the Texans beat the Bills, and I will say that game was ugly. It was a Thursday night football game.
Yeah.
You do have to take those with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the Bills could not do anything offensively in that game. The teams that scare me the most for the Bills, quite honestly, are the teams that can do everything pretty well. Because when I play the Texans, I know what I'm getting. They are a dominant defense. But my best player, the best thing about my team is on offense, so I'll let Josh Allen worry about them. I am not worried about CJ Stroud and Nico Collins and Woody Marks going out there and putting up 40 points on our defense. I just am not. So from that respect, the Texans don't necessarily scare me. For the Broncos, I mean, they're not really in this conversation. They would be more of a second round opponent. Honestly, if the Ravens are 1, I think the Patriots would be 2. And that to me is more about familiarity with Josh Allen, division opponent, and because Josh Allen is one of those guys where the more you see him, the less surprising what he can do is. And I think the more, like, Josh Allen can, if you don't see him twice a year, 3 times a year, he's going to make plays that will just completely throw you off. You have the best defense called in the world. Everybody's covered. You have a blitzer that comes free. I drew up this perfect blitz. All of a sudden, the blitzer's laying down the backfield. Josh Allen is scrambling around. Your edge rusher, who was supposed to hold contain, bit the cheese. Josh Allen's wide open, and now he's hitting Gabe Davis for a 50-yard touchdown pass. That can throw you off. So I do worry about that third divisional round matchup. I'm not scared of the Patriots by any means. I'd prefer to avoid them in the first round if possible. I do understand the Texans. I think the Jaguars are interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They are good at everything. Let's talk about the Jaguars for a second, though. You look at their point differential, it's pretty elite. And lately, you've been seeing Cohen get some good play out of Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. And honestly, the Jacoby Myers trade has kind of opened up their offense where they aren't filtering as much through Brian Thomas Jr., and that has been a good thing for them, and their defense is playing well. My counter argument to that is they've gotten fat off of some really bad teams recently. They've beaten the Cardinals. They've beaten the Raiders. They beat the Jets last week. They beat the Colts in the game that that Daniel Jones got injured like on the first drive. They beat the Titans. Like those are their last 5 wins. So at some point you have to wonder, are they a product of their schedule or are they actually a good team? I think sitting here today, my heart says sign me up for Josh Allen against Trevor Lawrence in the playoffs. But how do you see the Jaguars?
I will just say Puka Nakua's comments on the Jaguars might be one of the most overrated teams in the NFL. Shout out to that most recent clip if anyone hasn't seen it yet. I think there's weight to it. We'll just put it that way. I think there's validity to that statement. I think the Jags have done a lot of great things. And I will say, acquiring Jacoby Myers and making that work and in doing things and getting things to click. ETN has been, all things considered, pretty damn good for them. And Trevor Lawrence, as like the image in my head is him just stumbling around but still scoring a touchdown against the Chiefs weeks ago on Monday Night Football. That image is there, but he has still been operating this offense at a good level. It feels like him and Liam Cohen might be getting on the same page finally. Maybe the Jags offensive personnel as a whole are buying into him. I'm not the biggest Liam Cohen guy as well. I will just get that out there in the space. They are a team that I would absolutely sign up for if I'm a Bills fan. Like nothing sounds better to me than Josh Allen going to a nice warm climate in Jacksonville to take on the Jags, who, yes, they have some good things going on for them, and it might be clicking right now. I'm not going to sit here and say product of their schedule, but that definitely has helped them get to the position that they are. They have some quality wins in there, but and we'll call the Chiefs one for what it's worth, a quality win. It is what it is. It's just I would feel very comfortable with Josh Allen being able to get the job done in Saxonville, Jacksonville, whatever you want to call them. If that were to be the first round matchup, there would definitely not be at least a level of concern that you would have comparative to Ravens, Texans, or even Patriots as you laid it out.
Good question here from Nico. Let me ask you guys, as much as we're saying we don't want to play Texans, how many teams are saying, I don't want to play the Bills and Josh Allen? All of them. Every single one of them. Because when it comes to these one and done scenarios, they're doing the same thing we are. You're looking at the best players on the team. Who is it that can have an A+ day and there's nothing I can do about it? You can bring a Bills defense that ranked in the top 5 all season long, but if Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill are on their A game, they're going to score every time they have the ball. We've lived that life. Mm-hmm. Josh Allen is an A+ superstar at the most important position in the sport, and if he's playing his A game, there is almost no team in the sport that can keep up with him. And that's showed by the fact that even with this ragtag group of receivers and a collection of games where the Bills kind of underwhelmed us offensively, they're still 4th in the entire NFL in points scored. So nobody who wins their division is going to be excited about Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills coming to town. And honestly, Luka, I would say other than Houston, I think every other division winner would be an underdog to the Bills.
I mean,
I'm counting Denver as out of the picture. By the way, so
yeah. And honestly, I'd probably put Denver into that equation. Yeah, I would say Houston would most likely be, let's call it a 1.5 point favorite at home. Some part of me wants to say that the Patriots would be favorited, but then again, we just saw that matchup and they were not favorited. So
Mhm.
I take that for what it is. And you're not going to favorite Josh Allen coming into town with an unknown rookie, well, not rookie, second year quarterback in a playoff setting. So yeah, you definitely could be onto something there. And like I just said, the Texans would be the only one where, if we're talking betting lines and stuff, like they would give a slight nod to the Texans, but not give the Bills a field goal, because we saw what we saw on a Thursday night football game where the Bills were in the red zone with a chance to take the lead late, and it just didn't work out. So yeah, I would agree with that. But then again, I will say, I wouldn't even surprise me if all of a sudden you saw the line be Bills -1.5 on the road in Houston. Like, they could be favored in all the situations. And that primarily comes down to exactly what we're talking about here. When you have Josh Allen on one of those sidelines, these sports books do not want to be giving you points because they have Josh Allen, plain and simple.
Mhm. I mean, the Jaguars also have Josh Allen, but it's just not quite as important as our version of Josh Allen. The Jaguars are 2-0 against the Bills in the playoffs. I heard that on WGR today, and I was like, huh, yeah, I didn't think
Weird.
about that. All right, Chargers. Chargers are probably not a team the Bills could see in the first round, but they're going to be in the mix. I feel like the Chargers are not going to have a very long playoff experience this year, Luka. I know you and I have both liked Justin Herbert, but man, this team's running on fumes, in my opinion. But when you look at what's going on with their tackle situation, they've lost both their starting tackles. They've got injuries to both running backs along the way. I just look at this Chargers team and I'm like, I don't think that they're a team that could really scare you. You there, Luca? Oh, okay. Um, anyway, we're gonna hang out for a second. Luca's got something else going on. Let me know in the chat what you all think about the different matchups. Let's see what Caleb has to say. He says Texans and Raiders back to back the next. Texans have Raiders and Chargers back to back the next 2 weeks. It is interesting, Caleb, because a lot of these teams are going to play each other. Like the Chargers still have to play the Texans, as you mentioned. The Chargers have to play the Broncos another time. The Chargers have to play the Chiefs, although that's significantly easier. And the Texans do play the Chargers. And there was another crossover matchup in there. Oh, Patriots play the Ravens. I predict that we're all going to be sitting here on Sunday night, week 18, and the Bills are going to have locked up the 4 seed, or the 5 seed, excuse me. And we're going to be sitting there watching Sunday night football, Ravens versus Steelers, and sweating it out, hoping beyond hope that the Steelers can find a way to win. That game is in Pittsburgh. That game will be for the right to see who plays the Bills. But yeah, I think that's probably the scenario we're looking for. In case you don't know, the Steelers are up on them one in the standings and have won head to head. But if they finish with the same record and the Ravens win the last game of the season, the Ravens have the ultimate tiebreaker. So yeah. All right. Luca's back with us, I think. Luka, let's wrap this point up and start talking about the Browns. Any thoughts on the Chargers or the teams we mentioned along the way? Oh, I think you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, had technical difficulty there. My
All good.
just had a loud tone in my ear. I'm glad it was just me though. So the Chargers conversation is as simple as this for me. I think the Chargers just have this one, I'm just going to call it aura, but just there's a vibe around them where it immediately cuts down on the fear factor. And with them being without both of their very nice, if not all pro tackles, for the remainder of this season, and having that deficiency there, I think you see the end result of that being simply Herbert's scrambling for his life half the time. And he's in, as great as Herbert is, as extending that play and making it happen. Eventually, it's just not going to sustain and work out for them. And I just don't see a matchup with them when it comes to the Bills that would threaten them in any capacity. I think they'd be able to win a shootout. I think they'd be able to win an ugly one against the Chargers. I just don't see one where the Chargers would be able to get one up on the Bills for a multitude of reasons. When it, just the path as a whole, though, looking at the 6 other teams as we're discussing them in the postseason, it's the greatest opponent for the Bills in this postseason truly is, as cliche as it sounds, themselves. They have to just show up and give their best effort that we've been seeing of recent. And if they do that, I just don't see a team that should be able to outclass them in this entire postseason. I just think when you have Josh Allen, when you have it's not even Josh Allen. When you have Josh Allen, the offensive line five that you do, and James Cook operating all as its entire unit together as efficiently as it is. I mean, James Cook is, in my opinion, more likely than not to finish as the league leader in rushing just because of what's going on in Indy. And obviously they're going to be stacking the box a little bit more and daring 44-year-old Phillip Rivers to sling it, which is going to be great to watch. I just, it's hard to think of teams being able to slow them down for so long. And I think it was today on McAfee show. AQ Shipley was talking. He brought up a great point. He goes, or no, JJ Watt brought up the stat, and he goes, when you look at Josh Allen's rushing stats, which I think there's some game script to this too, but you look at that and then you look at their average yards per carry, both for him being Josh Allen and James Cook between first half and second half splits. It's crazy how much higher everything is in the second half for the Bills, to a point where that's what you look at as going, this is why this team can be successful and make a deep run. I mean, Josh Allen is almost at 400 yards in the second half comparative to like just over 100 in the first half. And then, 9 touchdowns on those carries. And I think the carry number is around the 40s to 50. And James Cook, I think, is averaging in the second half the last 5 weeks, potentially over 5 yards per carry. It was very close to it. It's one of those things where this unit, we talk about second half adjustments, but between that and just allowing themselves to live in the reality of, we got to stick with this, we need to continue to work at our strength, which is truly inside the tackles. That's playoff success football. That's what that is. And you should be able to believe in James Cook, Josh Allen, and this offensive line to get the job done for you versus anyone. And I do genuinely believe that when it comes to playoff time.
As far as Nico's question, how many times are you guys thinking we're going to have to have a shootout to win a playoff game? Hopefully not many. I do think the Bills can win a shootout. They're certainly equipped to do that. But I don't think that's their preferred choice of way to play. I think they want to control the game with their running game. And if they're in a shootout, it means their defense doesn't have answers. And I think for this Bills team to be dangerous, they're going to have contribution from their defense beyond praying for turnovers like they did against the Bengals. But we shall see. I mean, it's hard for me to think of an NFC opponent in the Super Bowl, if we were to get that far, where the Bills defense would have much success against. But, I'd love to have that problem. All right, let's turn our attention now to the matter at hand, and that is the Cleveland Browns. Luka, this is not a very impressive team. They don't do a lot well offensively. Shedeur Sanders is a lightning rod. I think he was underdrafted for sure. You and I we do live draft with Stokes. We do live draft coverage, and then we also do a lot of draft prep leading up to it. You and I both agreed he was not a first round prospect, probably more of a day 2 guy, but an absolute steal in the 3rd round, and we both liked him better than Dylan Gabriel. But lightning rod because he's Deion Sanders' kid, lightning rod because it's the Cleveland Browns and they're just the team that can't ever seem to get it right at quarterback, and a lightning rod, quite honestly, because how they've handled him, taking him out in 2-point conversion situations so they can do like wildcat runs with Quinshawn Judkins. When you look at this Browns offense, is there anything about it that really threatens you?
No, the simple answer is no. Their offensive line is one of the weaker ones they've had for what feels like a very long time. They do have Joel Botino or Botio.
Batonio.
Yeah. Batonio, thank you. I can never say his last name. I don't know why. It's not complicated. He is quality. I think their guards in general too. Jenkins over there as well. He has definitely been a decent guard, but outside of that, they're not anything special. I think Judkins has had some flash and some positivity to his game, but we've even seen recently that it's kind of come back down to earth a little bit more. I think that's primarily due to the offensive line maybe not being that good. And then from there, it's you truly are looking, and where my last point will be, everyone talks about the Bills receiving core being pathetic and not where they want it to be. Well, I will say this. Cleveland gives them a run for their money when it comes to, at least they have name recognition, but they've actually been even worse. They have been just an absolute disaster when it comes to the receiver position between Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, and then Isaiah Bond, the rookie out of Texas. They are just they are inefficient at best. And I think it's funny, and I think it's a point worth being brought up, not because I believe what it is that I'm about to say, but I think what you see that is so bad with this Cleveland offense is what fuels the fact that there's a conspiracy out there that people believe Stefanski is sabotaging Shedeur Sanders. I don't believe in that at all. I think that's ridiculous. You wouldn't do that, for a multitude of reasons. I think that's just, there's a lot to unpack with that. But what I will say is that conspiracy is fueled by what you see week in, week out. This offense is just terrible. And it looks like Shedeur has no direction in what he's supposed to be doing. And I think that just comes to he's a rookie. He wasn't given first team reps, basically for his entirety of his career up until a couple of weeks ago. And he's just trying to learn things on the fly, but everything around him is also just not that good. And I also think Stefanski might also just, not be that good. So it's just one of those things where the collective is terrible, and therefore the end result can be nothing better than, terrible. So, nothing about the Cleveland offense is good. There's no positives. I'll give a slight nod to Harold Fannin. I think he's been decent at the tight end position for them, especially of late. Seems like there's rapport there between him and Shedeur as well. You've seen some bigger touchdowns, if we want to call them that, between the two. But I mean, that's the only nod I'll give them, to be quite honest.
Until they figure out the quarterback, it just reminds me so much of the Colts, where when Daniel Jones was playing well, it was like, wow, look at Michael Pittman. Wow, look at Josh Downs. Look at Alec Pierce. And then they had Warren. I like Fannin a lot. I was really high on Bond in the draft process and was hoping that the Bills would be on him. He obviously didn't get drafted for off the field reasons that he ended up being found innocent on, I suppose. And I don't know the right way to phrase that, but he got cleared. But after the draft, the Browns basically got a second round talent for free. And, Jerry Jeudy at this point, I think, is just hanging around the league because he was drafted in the first round. He's inconsistent on and off the field. He's dropping passes, making mistakes. Cedric Tillman has had flashes in the league, but they've just been flashes. So yeah, I'm with you. Nothing scary there. Luka, is there anybody scary on the Browns defense? Anybody stand out to you?
Yeah, there might be one guy who was a first overall pick at one point in his life. It feels like forever ago. That was actually only 8 years ago. Myles Garrett obviously is the standout. Just, what's the craziest thing about? I want to point this out because I thought it was actually even crazy. Myles Garrett came into the league in 2017. And, we like to reference PFF once in a while just because you take it for a grain of salt. It's a nice baseline metric if you want to utilize it or not, but, don't let it be your end all be all conversation piece. Josh, he has somehow basically gotten better PFF score wise each season. And I feel like for an 8 season stretch, that is crazy. He's currently a 93. In like he started at an 80 and it's just progressively gone up. There's one where he was a 93.9 2 years ago when he won Defensive Player of the Year. I believe that was 2 seasons ago. But regardless, he is absolutely their crown jewel. He said he wanted to win and then also tucked tail and turned around and, took his $40 million, understandably so. So he has accepted the fate that is being a Cleveland Brown. What I will say, though, is just to roll it into the rest of the defense conversation, Josh. There are other guys on this defense. This defense is a quality defensive unit. Opposite of Myles Garrett. Now, life is probably very good whenever you're opposite a first ballot Hall of Famer like a Myles Garrett. But Alex Wright has actually been a very good edge player for them. He has definitely been there. Their rookie, also Mason Graham, for being a rookie, has been impactful. And then also there's this resurgence of Devin Bush in his career at linebacker. He has been very, very nice for them. on top of also the rookie playing Mike for them, Carson Schweschinger, I want to say it is. Their front seven as an entire unit, Josh, is definitely, in my opinion, one that is going to provide enough resistance for a good stretch to the Bills' running attack. It is definitely going to do a very good job early on and even throughout the middle chunk of the game to get things going, and just kind of keep things at bay. But eventually, with how bad their offense is, there will be a point of resistance that it can no longer meet. But this defense definitely has a lot of guys. I mean, I am actually a Grant Delpit guy. He came in the league 2020. I don't think he's really impressed nearly as much as I expected him to, but I liked him coming out of LSU, and I think he's got top end talent to him that is, nice. And then Sam Webb has been a nice corner for them this season. That I mean, they definitely have guys around there that they can cause problems for this Bills offense. Absolutely. That even go beyond the obvious Myles Garrett answer to your original question.
I think it's one of those weeks for the Bills, maybe not too dissimilar from the Pittsburgh game, where I feel like it's okay if the Bills are conservative this week. I don't mind them punting on 4th and short. Yeah, play the field position game, play the long game. I don't think field goal is a bad result for drives. And I say that as somebody who has Josh Allen as my fantasy football quarterback in multiple playoff matchups this week. I would love to see the Bills go out there and score 60, but the smart football play is it's okay to not get points on every drive. It's okay to punt and play field position because ultimately you're not worried about this Browns team just going out there and lighting you up. And if Shedeur Sanders and this ragtag offensive line and this group of receivers that might be worse than what the Bills have has to go 90 yards against Sean McDermott and Bobby Babbitt's defense, you're betting on the fact that they might make a mistake along the way. And that, I have no problem in this game. I think that's what this game would call for. Luka, you're a sports historian. Are you familiar with the name Sam Bowie?
Sam Bowie? No, actually.
So
Honestly.
he's historically, he's the guy famously who was picked ahead of Michael Jordan.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, so he gets made fun of. Like, how could you pick so-and-so over Michael Jordan? There were 2 players picked ahead of Michael Jordan that year. Sam Bowie and Hakeem Olajuwon.
Yeah.
Nobody ever mentions Hakeem Olajuwon as a mistake pick. And Michael Jordan is considered the greatest player ever by many, including me. Hakeem Olajuwon is not considered that. That says something about his greatness, though, that they never mention Hakeem Olajuwon being a mistake pick. Why am I talking about this on a football show? Myles Garrett was picked ahead of Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. The Cleveland Browns haven't had a quarterback since my grandpa's kids were kids and grandpa's grandpa was a grandpa. And you never hear anybody say that the Browns passed on Patrick Mahomes. The Bills have Josh freaking Allen, and every single time CBS has a chance to put the graphic on the screen, they'll tell us that the Bills traded out of the spot that became Patrick Mahomes. The Bears famously took Mitch Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes. To get an idea of how special Myles Garrett is, the Browns took Myles Garrett over Patrick Mahomes, and nobody says anything about it. He's that good.
Yeah. I mean, when you have Myles Garrett, he is, I think I mentioned it during our podcast. You're already hearing things from players earlier on that are looking at him and referring to some of the things he does on a football field going, that is, just for Bills fans out there, that is Bruce Smith. Like that is there. You're seeing things that there was only one guy out there in the history of the NFL doing. And it's fitting that this individual, I mean, you even have Strahan saying, I can't wait for him to break my record. There is no one better to break my sack record than Myles Garrett. That is a tip of the cap to what is clearly just elite upon elite talent. That it's the reason that Bills fans, when the inkling of Myles Garrett possibly wanting out, and there was the potential that he just go right up the I-90, Josh, and join the Bills, that was just salivating. That was like, we found our solution to rushing the passer plus. I mean, that is cornerstone of the defense. You can do whatever. You can have the small little guys all over the place. Guess what? You have a game wrecker at edge. You can move them all over the place. You can do whatever the F you want. He will destroy game plans for you. And that's what he does. So I love kind of the little bit of point you're bringing to this, where it's like, hey, he was in the draft with Patrick Mahomes, who people want to put in that GOAT conversation and stuff a little bit prematurely. And it's like, no one talks about how Cleveland took Myles Garrett number 1 overall in that conversation, because it's like, at the end of the day, you're not passing up on Myles Garrett ever. I mean, the Browns deserve more criticism for taking having 2 picks and passing on Josh Allen at this point, even though they did take Baker Mayfield first overall. They basically passed on Josh Allen twice in a draft to then take their guys, and neither of those players are on their or in their organization anymore. So it's one of those things where it's just like, I don't think, wait, no, what's his name is still there.
Denzel Ward.
Yeah, Denzel Ward's still there, but he's just hurt. I was going to say, I just haven't heard his name in forever. That's like, yeah, he must not exist anymore. He's a Cleveland Brown. He basically doesn't. So it's one of those things, though, going back to the Myles Garrett thing, that it's really upsetting to me as a football fan that Myles Garrett's just going to waste away doing nothing of quality on the Browns. But also, we talked about, do you feel bad for it? No, you got paid to do what you're doing now on the Browns. Just, that is the reality you have to unfortunately live in. Well, unfortunately, take your $40 million a year to the bank year in, year out to play on the Browns.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, I'd give anything for him to be on the Bills. Anything but Josh Allen. Take it all. Take all the assets, and we'll figure it out on defense. I would take 10 guys off the street and Myles Garrett and be like, all right, we're good. All right, before we get to predictions, I want to talk a little bit about what Roy Collins said here. Whoa, who was worried about Miami lighting it up? I'm not taking Cleveland for granted. And I know I was the guy that came on this show. I was on Cover One that week. I was like, Joe DeRosa said, I'm not sleeping on the Dolphins. And I was all like, oh, I'm over here sleeping. And then the Bills got blown out. Luka, I might regret saying this, but when I see Dalton Kincaid is he's missing practice with a knee injury, I'm back to, hey, Benford, how's the toe? If there's even a little inkling of pain, take the week off. Hey, Kincaid, you need your knee to take a break for a week? We got some money games coming up in about 4 weeks. Go ahead and take it off this week. If the Bills can't beat the Browns without Dalton Kincaid and Christian Benford at less than 100%, then what was it all about anyway? And quite honestly, the Bills could lose out and they're still about 85 to 90% to make the playoffs at this point in time. So I'm not saying like I want the Bills to lose this game, but I do think at some point along the way, they're going to have to get some guys some rest that need it to make sure that everybody we need healthy for the playoffs is healthy. And if that means Dalton takes off this week, if that means, I don't get the sense that Benford, I don't get the sense they're going to be pushing Benford out there this week. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to do that. For what? To go chase around Cedric Tillman, like in bad weather? Like, no, take it off. Like, Trey White can handle that. So I think the Bills will be conservative this week. What do you think about that strategy?
Yeah, we talk about that. It's almost like broken record discussion with this. It's like if you, in my opinion, this is how I look at it. If you go into a matchup and you believe you have, let's call it a 70% chance to win that matchup, that should ultimately trigger the, hey, are you concerned about your health and well-being going into this matchup? Take a break. Because if you can't win the game, even with certain individuals being unavailable to you, and then at full strength, you were 70%, you probably shouldn't be, winning that game in the first place anyways, in my opinion. You didn't deserve to be at that 70% mark. And I would venture to say, Josh, most people, or at least 70% of people, if not more, would say the Bills are going to win this game. I would imagine it's in the 90% plus. So Dalton Kincaid, Christian Benford, shit. Your vets, like even a Jordan Poyer, it's like, hey, are you pretty banged up this week and we need to get by without you for another week so you can hopefully rest up to be playing the, we'll call them the more important games later on in the season / playoffs. It's like, yes, that is what we need to do. So I conservative when it comes to health and well-being and going into this matchup. You absolutely are. I put it in the thumbnail. This is what I've said in games past, including a Miami game, where it's like you needed to handle it the way that like it's a business trip. You're going there for a business trip. Take care of business. Get the F out of there. be healthy. Hopefully everyone's healthy. You don't pick up anything there. And if anyone is worried about potentially worsening wherever that is, whether it's, Kincaid's knee, Benford's toe, whatever, it's like, hey, best that you sit out and just kind of figure it out another time, get another week of rest. We have bigger fish to fry when it comes to the matchups down the road being the playoffs.
Real quick note, Jim Schwartz is the Browns defensive coordinator. You might remember him from 2015 with the Bills. That was Rex Ryan.
No, I think you were right.
2014.
Yeah, I was going to say 2013, 2014.
It was second year of Marone.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He got carried off the field in Detroit. That's
right. It was the Kyle Orton year because Kyle
2014,
Orton, yeah. Man, these years run together. All right. It's prediction time, Luka. The Bills are 10.5-point favorites at the Cleveland Browns. For the Bills, this game means staying in contention for the AFC East, staying in contention somewhat for the number 1 seed. Other than that, they can lose this game and it really won't impact their ability to make the playoffs. For the Browns, we've seen it time and time again as Bills fans, a random December win that costs you Cam Newton and Von Miller, and all of a sudden you're getting Marcel Darius in the draft. But hey, woohoo, congrats on the meaningless win. But we do get to see some fun young players, Shedeur Sanders, Isaiah Bond, Harold Fannin, and then obviously the big story in Cleveland is, will Myles Garrett get the sack record? Luka, I have a 2-part question for you. 1, who wins this game? And tell me the how. 2, does Myles Garrett get the sack record?
I'll answer the second one. Yes. Myles Garrett is absolutely getting that sack record this game. There is no stopping Myles Garrett. There is only hoping to contain, and you will not contain him. As much as I propped up our offensive line, Josh, Myles Garrett's Myles Garrett. All right, let's give the flowers where it's due. He's absolutely a stud. I loved your idea. I love the ideas that come up. The general premise of, it's going to be Josh Allen in that first snap. You keep the start streak going, but hey, roll out, lay down. Myles Garrett taps you on the back. Boom, there's your sack. Roll out the parade. Give him his little paper certificate if you want to do that, like you did with Drew Brees in the NFL. Shout out that whole situation. Also, I would like to limit the amount of big hits that Josh Allen would take from Myles Garrett, being that I believe I just looked up the feels like at kickoff right now is reading 3 degrees. That sounds like fun. Yes, Myles Garrett's going to be breaking the record. Going into the predictions, the Bills will be winning this game. I just brought up the feels like, though, and you brought up the point even earlier. This needs to kind of be a conservative game plan. This needs to be one where, get through it. I mean, they've been operating this zone run scheme right now so well. You just keep that up with a 3-headed monster. I'd love to see Ray Davis and Ty Johnson get a little bit more involved when it comes to carries, just because you're trying to also, manage the reps when it comes to James Cook. This feels like a game. You don't need to give James Cook 25 to 30 touches. You can move on with your life when it comes to maybe 15 to 20 touches for James Cook. Obviously you want to try to get that win to keep things rolling, but it's just manage the game, manage things, keep yourself safe and protected. No one get hurt. Everyone wrapped in bubble wrap. Get in there, take care of business, get out. I think the Bills do that this weekend. I just think that offense for Cleveland, or lack thereof, could even be one that I'm sure McDermott and Babich are coming up with something that should give them a little bit of a ego boost to be able to kind of limit stuff on that side. I'll take the Bills winning this one in a very cold, windy affair down the I-90. Let's go 26 to 11. I'll give Cleveland a weird score in there.
I wonder if that's a scoregami.
That's a good question.
Roy Collins asks, is it 1 or 1.5? Good call, Roy. It is 1.5 sacks that Myles Garrett needs. 1 would tie the record, 1.5 would break it. He's at 21.5. Strahan's record was 22.5. I'm going to say the Bills win this game. Surprise, surprise. I'm going to say that Myles Garrett breaks the sack record. Boy, 10.5 is a lot of points in an NFL game when you figure garbage time and things like that. I think it's going to be an ugly game. I could see Josh Allen running for a touchdown or two. I think it'd be hilarious if the Bills just came in and ran on every single snap with James Cook and Ray Davis and Ty Johnson and didn't let Myles Garrett get the sack record. I would not anticipate them doing that, but I think they could win that way. Ultimately, though, I think it'll be kind of a letdown spot for people that are relying on Josh Allen in fantasy football, although I think he'll get his probably like by running the ball in the end zone. I would not expect much rushing yardage from Josh Allen, as this is not the type of environment that they will look to unleash that against a much inferior team. But I'm going to say the Bills win this game 23 to 14. So the Browns cover the spread, but it never feels close, never feels threatening. Maybe the Browns go down and score on their first possession, and we're all like, here we go again. But ultimately, I think it'll be clear throughout the entire game who the better team is. The Bills go in there. It's a professional trip. They take care of business, and they move on to Philadelphia. Speaking of moving on to Philadelphia, next week is Christmas Eve. Luka and I, next Wednesday, I should say. Next week's Christmas Eve and all that. You all knew what I meant. Luka and I are TBD on the live show on Christmas Eve. We will let you know on the podcast that comes out Monday whether we're doing that. We'll also tweet it out, Bill's Chat Pod on Twitter. Over 10,000 followers now, by the way. We appreciate every single one of you. Speaking of appreciating all of you, if you're watching on YouTube tonight, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It helps us out so much as we continue to grow that channel. We love it that you guys are watching on YouTube and enjoying our content. A couple of goofballs talking Bills football and hopefully entertaining you in the process. Luka, any final thoughts before we get out of here on Bills Browns, on the playoff picture, on I know something we are going to talk about.
I was wondering if you're going to get to it.
I had forgotten about that, and I was the one that messaged you. So we are going to close the book on Bills talk, but we're going to stay in the Buffalo sports realm. I don't know if you have a background change coming up.
I was going to say, I don't even know if I have that stuff these days.
You know what? Hey, it's all right. Here we go. Your name's under me, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Luka, we don't normally talk hockey on this channel, but when there's big news, we try to hit on it. The Sabres made a general manager change this week. I am not the hockey guy on this podcast. You certainly are that with your Sabres Chat podcast, season ticket holder, etc. But it seems like the temperature of the fan base was about time. As somebody who's a diehard Sabres fan, just tell me what it means. Tell me what the outlook means, both short-term and long-term.
Well, short-term, just a sigh of relief. I mean, honestly, everyone understands, here, you know what, Josh, I'll swap us. Boom. Now the name's under me. The short-term and long-term. I think that's all lumped in one. Kevyn Adams just got stale. I think what we're starting to learn as the firing happened this past Monday is that even players in the dressing room, people around the organization were growing old with Kevyn Adams. And the message that he kept delivering publicly, I think, was even rubbing fans in the media the wrong way. And I think that also extended itself into internal things. And Terry, for the longest time, I think, wanted to do things in a way that he felt he could control, but the writing was on the wall as soon as they hired Jarmo Kekalainen to be an advisor in essentially what now feels like it was a 5-month span job interview, essentially, to see if he was the next GM to bring in. And I mean, push came to shove, time was now. The timing of it all, I will say, is fascinating. The fact that it leaked out and was known for a good stretch amount of time and then turned, it's like, okay, eventually after this 6-game road trip we have here, that's when we're going to do this. I think the timing was fascinating, for one. And two, I'm glad that they didn't wait till closer to the trade deadline, closer to the Olympics that are coming up in February. Whether the NHL is getting involved in that or not, I have no idea with everything that's going on over in Italy and that rink construction. But I think Jarmo coming in to talk about him is going to be something I would like to believe will feel like a breath of fresh air to Sabres fans. I think Jarmo Kekalainen comes in being a very bold, aggressive GM previously with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Everyone's heard the stat. He is only the third individual hired by the Sabres since their inception to have previous NHL GM experience. The last was Bowman all the way back in the 70s when he was hired. So it's one of those things where this is definitely new territory for the modern Sabres fan, but he is credited to bringing in Artemi Panarin, He's credited with making moves for like Marian Gaborik with the Blue Jackets. He got Johnny Gaudreau somehow to come to Columbus. He is a part. He has his hands on a lot of different things when it comes to the Sabre, or it comes to the Blue Jackets and building a successful culture there. He's also done a pretty solid job locating talent. I mean, he is the GM that was in term that drafted Zach Werenski, who is an absolute cornerstone for the Columbus Blue Jackets. He recognizes talent, understands things, and I love the message that he delivered in his opening presser. A couple things came out of it where everyone's under evaluation. He does not hold anyone when it comes to he will just blindly trust them, believe in them, whatever. Everyone's position, whether it's players on the ice, whether it's coaches behind the bench, or anyone else in the organization, they are under evaluation. Everyone needs to take their jobs seriously. I think that's a big thing. And then also the fact that he said Terry basically gave him full autonomy and control of the organization. That right there, saying full autonomy, is something that it has been believed for the longest time Terry was unwilling to separate with, to the point where you hear the things like him essentially telling Brendan Shanahan, no, I don't want you as a president of hockey ops. I am the president of hockey ops. It's like, I don't need my owner being the head and control of hockey operations as well. That is, you are doing too much cooking in the kitchen there. You need to let the organization be its own entity and put hockey people in position to do hockey things. Terry, you're a great owner when it comes to having money and doing the thing you do. I need hockey people making decisions. And I think Jarmo is one of those guys that you will see bold, calculated. I don't want to just say bold like he's just going to go crazy and burn things down. They are calculated. He has been around hockey for a long time of his life. He has been an NHL GM for a good stretch of his career. He knows what it takes to do certain things. And I think this move is a message sent to the locker room first that tells them that things are being taken seriously. And I think this could reap great rewards when it comes to roster construction and things like that in the future. But also, it wouldn't surprise me in the short term, Josh, to go back to that. You might see a bump up in play from this team in general. I think that's the kind of move that happens that really gets the players going and seeing, hey, if we can make a run at this thing. This guy says he doesn't believe we're out of the playoff contention yet, because for all of intents and purposes, they aren't. They're still in the thick of it of the East, even with where they currently sit in the standings, being near the bottom, if not the bottom. When you look at points, they're still very much in it. The East this year is just an absolute, just compact thing when it comes to, you go on a little bit of a stretch run. Next thing you know, you could be in the top 3 of your division. It's the boost hopefully comes. It'll be a big test. We're live Wednesday. Tomorrow they finally come home. They're playing the Flyers, a team that they've kind of recently not had a good time with against. That if we see a bump up in play tomorrow night, Josh, I'm thinking near future wise, this could be a definite thing that gets things going on the ice, and the product we're seeing is better. But long-term wise, I think we finally have an NHL person in a position to do things in a positive direction for this organization, to hopefully, for the love of God, bring some resemblance of success to this organization after the years and years and decade plus of just nonchalant failure that it's been.
The credibility piece, there's a real value to that. And, I'm not the hockey guy on this show, but I can empathize with a team that's in a 14-year playoff drought like the Sabres are, because I watched every minute and lived every minute of the Bills' 17-year playoff drought. And there was a point in time when they were doing coaching searches, and you felt like Mike Shanahan was just using the Bills as leverage against the then Washington Redskins. Like, Mike Shanahan wouldn't truly consider the Bills, and they ultimately decided on Chan Gailey, and his big marching orders in the press conference were, I get to be here, I want to be here, and that was supposed to make us all feel better. And I remember after hiring Marv Levy as president and acting general manager, and then when Marv got too tired for the job, and they just went next door and grabbed the scout Buddy Nix and made him GM, and it just felt like, are we a real team? And this kind of reminds me of when the Bills promoted Doug Whaley to GM. And I know Doug Whaley's kind of a meme for Bills fans, but at the time, Doug Whaley was in the Bills building as an assistant GM to Buddy Nix, but he was a hot name in league circles. He had come from Pittsburgh under Bill Cowher and that regime, and it gave the Bills credibility, kind of like when they hired Rex Ryan. Again, I get it, LOL, but it as when you get in that 14-year, a Bills case, 17-year playoff drought, you feel like you're in Siberia of the sport, like you don't even exist. And getting somebody that gives you credibility can make that happen. So I think that's important. One, to energize the fan base. Two, from my perspective, Kevyn Adams was completely tone deaf with this region when he had that comment about palm trees. Like, how do you say that to your fan base, but also to the players on the team? Now they start feeling like, well, you're not going to be able to get us any help. What's going on? So, what spinning it forward? I know you mentioned short term and long term. I think the biggest question on Sabres fans' minds is, what does this mean for Tuck?
That's a great question. I would say that there's no negative when it comes to Tuck's future potentially still with the Sabres. Coming from Jarmo being appointed GM, I think he is going to be evaluating that and understanding the cost. There was also the report that came out from former Sabres GM being Kevyn Adams, with Darren Drager, where he said that he was paying very much attention to other contracts going around and basically looking for north of a number of 10 point, I think it was 10.3. It's something that happened recently that's where he believed his market value is. That number, as scary as it might seem, is one that I don't know if I'm comfortable paying Tuck, but at the same time fully understand that's why he believes his market value is there. And on top of it all, I would say if they ended up re-signing him or extending him and giving him that amount, the cap is going to be going up in an aggressive manner that it won't feel nearly as kind of large as it is in short term. I mean, in 2-3 years, the cap is going to be over 10 million more in the NHL. The NHL was the first league out of the 4 major ones to get completely out of the debt that came from COVID. Props to them and then they signed that massive deal or massive deals with Turner Sports as well as ESPN that brought in so much revenue now to them that's why you're seeing the cap go up so aggressively for them. Tuck, it's just such a weird dynamic too. I will say this. Tuck being a guy that if they were to, let's say 10.5 annual for him, he would be making basically $3 million more than Tage Thompson. And it's like, do you believe Tuck is $3 million more valuable to this team than Tage Thompson? Well, no, but Tage also signed his contract at an interesting point in his career, which is why that number was the way that it was. So it's not a, apples to apples situation. It's truly kind of a unique, the NHL's in a weird spot where players' value changes so much. Get players signed as quickly as possible if you believe in them. That is what you need to do in the NHL because salary numbers are going up crazy fast as well as the cap is going up, which those things are of course related. So I think Jarmo is nothing but positive if you believe. I think Tuck was never going to resign under Kevyn Adams. I'm just going to throw that shot out there. I think Kevyn Adams being in charge and the lack of direction that was seen from the locker room is a major proponent to why Tuck was not willing to sign the dotted line. Among other things, I believe that they weren't close on a number. Kevyn Adams was probably not comfortable signing him for the number that he was looking for. I think bringing another GM in that has GM experience, credibility, all the things you and I have been discussing here, there's nothing that can be negative from that front, seen by Tuck and seen by everyone around the league, that potentially a deal could get done. I just do believe there's still some concern or question marks as to the number that ultimately Tuck is wanting and what the Sabres are willing to give him. I will find it fascinating. I mean, you're going to see something happen by trade deadline with Tuck. I think you will either see an extension happen or you will see him move down from. There is no other result, I believe, in the Tuck situation than one of those two things happening by trade deadline. So, realistically, I'd like to believe that you would even see it by the Olympics because, of course, there's a long break by then. And you would like to have Tuck feel settled by then and not have to be dwelling on everything through an entire Olympic break and then coming back with a trade deadline shortly after that to really kind of spur things up. So it will be fascinating to watch, but I think all in all, Jarmo coming in is nothing but positive in any, whether it's greatly positive or minimal, I don't know, but it can't be negative in my eyes for the Tuck situation.
And what they do with Tuck will probably go a long way in determining whether they are going to push in and try
Yeah.
to end that drought this year or play the long game. And, I sitting here with, all things being equal, I would think, hey, it's smart to play the long game, get some prospects, let's build this thing from the ground up. But again, when you have a playoff drought on your back weighing you down, it's an anchor and you just need to get that released. So
Yeah.
hopefully the Sabres can find a way to do both.
And for what it's worth, I do believe, I mean, even Kevyn Adams, before he was, let go, he was understanding that. And I think there's pressure within the organization as a whole to get over the line, to finally do it. When you saw the report come out that Byram and Zach Benson were looked at as key pieces and potentially moving for Quinn Hughes out of Vancouver, I mean, that is, say for what it is, it's just those two plus other things. It wasn't just going to be those two for Quinn Hughes. You saw the package that Minnesota ultimately gave, which was massive for Quinn Hughes because Quinn Hughes is that good of a talent. You see that report where Benson, as valuable as he is seen within the organization, and Byram as dynamic as it feels like he can be on the blue line. If those two guys are easily moved off of, plus whatever else you'd have to do, whether it's prospects and or a first round pick, similar to what Minnesota had to do, that to me was a very clear indication that there is pressure probably all the way at the top from Terry to be like, hey, we need to get this drought over with. This needs to get over the line. I don't care what you have to do, make it happen. So I think as you're even putting it and relating it to the Tuck situation, I don't think this team wants to move on from Tuck as much as they possibly can. If ultimately the pressure is to get into the postseason and they're willing to do hopefully whatever it takes to make that happen.
It'll be interesting to watch play out. The Sabres are back on the ice tomorrow night against the Philadelphia Flyers. And then this weekend, they have the New York Islanders coming to town before traveling to New Jersey to take on the Devils on Sunday. Speaking of Sunday, the Bills do battle with the Cleveland Browns at 1 o'clock. Luka and I will be back for Bills Chat podcast with breaking down everything that happened in the Bills-Browns game, the state of the playoffs in the AFC. I will be live at halftime of Bills Browns. I'm not even going to say it this week, Luka, because every week I say it, I feel like it's a jinx. Please give me a happy halftime show. East Melissa is there, win or lose, every halftime. And we were both like, this week it was just crash out, just banging our head on the table. What is happening? She's a ride or die with our show. We love that. And then TBD on Bills Chat Live next week. But no matter what, happy holidays to all of you out there. Merry Christmas. Whatever you celebrate this time of year, I hope you have a wonderful time with your family or whoever's important with you. And for Luka, I am Josh McCarty, and we will talk to you next time on Bills Chat Live.